Sources say Hong Kong U Vice Chancellor Peter Matheson has resigned. The new U.S. Defense Secretary begins a visit to South Korea and Japan. And violent protests at UC Berkeley over right-wing speaker.
Good evening. University of Hong Kong Vice Chancellor Peter Matheson has resigned. He'll return to the UK next year to head the University of Edinburgh. As El Milung reports, Matheson led the University of Hong Kong through turbulent times.
In a message to University of Hong Kong staff, students and alumni, Peter Matheson says he's sorry and somewhat surprised to leave the school before his 5-year term ends. He expressed regret he did not work with them longer. Matheson will leave the University of Hong Kong in January next year and become the Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Edinburgh. President of the University of Hong Kong Staff Association, Stephen Chan, said Matheson has done a good job communicating with various stakeholders. Meanwhile, a student leader expressed shock over his departure.
There is tension among students and the university, so the role of the Vice-Chancellor is essential. The Council should establish a very open and public and fair system to choose the next Vice-Chancellor. So I guess the Council has to work on it as soon as possible.
Matheson officially became the head of the University of Hong Kong in April 2014 after serving as the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry at the University of Bristol. Critics had spoken out against his appointment, saying he didn't understand the mainland or Hong Kong's situation. He led the school during turbulent times and had to deal with a number of controversies. At the height of the Occupy protests later that year, Matheson and the head of Chinese University, Joseph Song, visited a protest site and called for restraint amongst demonstrating students to try to avert what some feared an imminent government crackdown. The university also sparked controversy when it deferred the appointment of liberal law academic Johannes Chan as pro-vice-chancellor. Some staff and students were also unhappy when Arthur Lee was named the head of the school's governing body, the University of Hong Kong Council. Lee says he's saddened by Matheson's departure but respects his decision. El Milung, TVB News.
As the countdown to the chief executive election enters its final 2 months, CE hopefuls took aim at one of the city's largest labor groups today. Winna Wong reports.
With its members holding at least 60 election committee votes, the Federation of Trade Unions is another crucial group chief executive hopefuls will need to convince that they are capable enough to take up the city's top job. And this is exactly what Carrie Lam and John Tsang tried to do today. Lam was the first to meet with the FTU members. Afterwards, she was asked about the controversial topic of standard working hours. The Standard Working Hours Committee officially revealed its proposal last month, which suggests working hours should only be standardized for low-income workers. The FTU has already said it opposes the proposal. Lam refused to say whether she'll adopt a more inclusive legislation plan if she wins the CE election, but stressed it is a complicated issue that needs to be dealt with carefully. John Tsang arrived later this evening. The FTU says it will also look at the candidates' views on the MPF offsetting mechanism, maternity leave, and other major issues. The candidates' itineraries today also included other meetings. Lam was at the Legislative Council to meet with members of the food and catering industries.
We have talked a wide range of issues that are close to our hearts. So, and we have got some frank answers. As for us, we will not be finalizing, nominating which candidate until we meet on the 23rd of this month. After that, we hope by then we would be able to see all the manifestos from all candidates. Then we can fully discuss.
John Tsang met with those in the IT sector. And Wu Kwa-keng visited an electric car company's warehouse in Chunwan today. Regina Ip made no public appearances today. Wenna Wang, TVB News.
Election committee members across the political spectrum are starting to speak publicly about which candidates they prefer. The Pan Democrats say they've yet to make a decision, but are leaning toward voting for Wu Kwa-keng or John Tsang.
I don't think there is any inclination at all at this moment, because basically any candidate or candidates we are going to nominate, or at least they should not violate the three principles we have enshrined during the election process, which is a CE candidate which can unite Hong Kong. He or she should start the political reform outside the 31st August framework and to protect the core values of Hong Kong.
The Professional Teachers Union, which holds 30 votes, listed 5 major issues it wants candidates to address, such as whether they plan to restart talks on political reform and who they would appoint as the city's next Secretary for Education. The Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong will be meeting with Carrie Lam tomorrow. DAB Chairwoman Starry Lee says the party will make its decision on which candidate to support after meeting with all 4 of them this month.
An ICAC official testified in the corruption trial of former Chief Executive Donald Tsang that Bank of East Asia Chairman David Lee was not asked to make a statement during the investigation into the case. That's because the anti-graft body's director of investigation wasn't expecting the banker to cooperate. Elmi Lung reports.
6 months before leaving office, Donald Tsang made headlines with his boat rides and the Shenzhen apartment he rented from Wave Media shareholder Bill Wong. Ricky Yu, Director of Investigation at anti-graft body ICAC, confirmed that officers began looking into corruption allegations against Tsang in February 2012. Yu said during the investigation, the ICAC received 5 documents from Donald Tsang. The documents include a 2-year rental contract signed between Tsang's wife and Shenzhen East Pacific Group, as well as remittance notes of 800,000 yuan. There was also an agreement which noted that Mrs. Tsang gave up 800,000 yuan she had paid as rent to compensate Shenzhen East Pacific Group for the renovation costs and termination of her tenancy. The court earlier heard that Mrs. Tsang received a $350,000 check from Bank of East Asia chairman David Lee. Lee is one of the shareholders of Wave Media. He is not listed as a prosecution witness. The court also heard why the ICAC never took statements from David Lee or his secretary. Ricky Yu said from past experience, a formal interview with David Lee must be held under caution. Otherwise, he believes the banker would not cooperate. Yu also revealed that it took 5 months before they could speak to Bank of East Asia employees. He noted that the bank's legal representatives read statements before staff members were allowed to sign on them. Yu thinks there are many hurdles in investigating the bank's people, so the anti-corruption body did not ask David Lee to make a statement. All prosecution witnesses have now testified and the defense side will soon start its case. Elmi Long, TVB News.
North Korea figures prominently as Jim Mattis begins his first trip abroad as the new U.S. Defense Secretary. Mattis has arrived in South Korea as he attempts to address what he calls provocative acts from Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs. Mattis, who will also visit Japan, said he will consult with his counterparts about what new defensive steps might be needed to deal with threats from the north. The new Pentagon chief will also discuss the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system, known as THAAD. South Korea and the U.S. say THAAD is designed to protect against North Korea's growing nuclear and ballistic capabilities. Beijing objects to the system, saying it will destabilize regional security. Mattis says no other nation needs to be concerned about it.
To U.S. politics, where Senate Democrats vow to block any drastic measures aimed at confirming President Donald Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court. This as Trump encouraged Senate Republicans to get it done by using a rule change he calls going nuclear. Right after Trump announced Neil Gorsuch as his pick for Supreme Court justice, came word that Democrats would resort to filibustering in order to stop Gorsuch from being confirmed. So Trump encouraged the head of the Senate to fight fire with fire.
But if we end up with that gridlock, I would say, if you can, Mitch, go nuclear, because that would be an absolute shame if a man of this quality was caught up in the web.
Going nuclear calls for a profound change in Senate rules to lower the threshold for Gorsuch to 50 votes instead of the customary 60-vote threshold. That's because Republicans control the Senate 52 to 48. The move had the Senate Democratic leader crying foul.
The answer should not be to change the rules of the Senate.